Hi, if I haven't met you yet, my name's McKinna and I co-direct CYF1 with Randy Earhart, and I have really missed seeing you all this summer. Um, it's our last day of camp, and the theme is Holy Smoke. And I wanted to share with you about this experience that I had a few years ago. Before I moved to Iowa, I had been serving a church in Kentucky and realized that this Midwestern girl was probably the closest to the Appalachian Trail that she would ever be. So I decided that before I left Kentucky, I had to hike part of the Appalachian Trail. So I did my best research and I bought a bunch of gear and I set out to hike approximately 80 miles on the Appalachian Trail. I only made it about 35, but I am still really proud of that 35 miles. And my story comes from my first night on the trail. As I started hiking, I started down at Fontana Dam in North Carolina, and your first day hiking into the AT that's in the Smoky Mountains is just straight up because you have to gain a lot of elevation, and it was really hard, and I almost gave up that first day, especially when I saw these like 60, 70-year-old men just like hiking right past me, moving really, really fast and making me feel real out of shape. Um, so imagine my surprise when I finally dragged myself in to the campsite that night, and all of these old guys are hanging out around the fire, kicking it together. And I was like, oh God, I'm the only girl here. I'm younger than them. They're old. They're going to judge me. Um, but it turns out that they were really great. One of them saw that I was struggling to set up my tent. He came over and helped me out. He didn't judge me at all. He didn't chastise me for setting out on a trip with a tent that I didn't know how to use. And then he invited me over to their fire to cook my meal. So got around the fire and I tried to set up my meal, my cooking station, and the smoke just kept following me all around the fire. I'd moved several different times to try to avoid the smoke, and the smoke would just not let me go. So that night, because it was my first night on the trail, they bestowed me with my trail name, and it was Smoky because the smoke wouldn't let me alone. That reminded me of another story in the Bible, where this is after Moses experiences the burning bush moment, and he has been leading the Israelites in the wilderness, in the desert. They don't really have a great map of where they're going, and there is God communicates with them. God reveals God's self to them through a pillar of fire and smoke. In the daytime, it's a pillar of smoke and they follow it wherever it goes, and that's their navigational system. And at night, it turns into a pillar of fire so that they can see that God is always with them. And it doesn't let them go. I love that story because God sees what the people need in a really crazy time, in an experience that they're having that they've never experienced before. And God says, I'm here. I'm going to show you the way. I'm not going to let you go. Smoke is one of the ways that God reveals God's self to the people in the Hebrew Bible. And I really appreciate that because fire and smoke are still some of the ways that God, that we talk about God. Oftentimes at the beginning of services in worship, we light a candle and we say, this candle represents the light of Christ, that Christ is here among us. And then when we put it out, we have the little dampener, and when we lift it up, there's oftentimes this little trail of smoke that flurries away, and we say, now the light that was here in one place is now in all places. and the smoke sort of dissipates and it covers um, everywhere. It reminds us that God goes with us no matter where we are. So I hope that you know that even though we aren't sharing one campfire all together, that the smoke follows you, that try as you might, you probably can't get away from it. And it might lead you to some places where you've never been before. Um, we're all in this kind of crazy season where we don't know what's happening. And I just hope you remember that the smoke follows you and it will lead you, and God is with you no matter where you go.